The boardroom fell silent as Camilla Reyes, Ethan's young secretary, stood up with a folder in her manicured hands. Rebecca Collins felt her stomach tighten as Camilla looked directly at her, not at the other board members. "Rebecca," Camilla announced with a cold smile, "Mr. Collins has instructed me to inform you that your position as Chief Operating Officer is terminated, effective immediately." Rebecca stared at her husband in disbelief. Ethan, the man she'd built this billion-dollar company with, wouldn't even look her in the eye. He examined his watch as though his wife's public humiliation was keeping him from more important matters. "Ethan," Rebecca said, her voice barely steady, "I'm pregnant." He finally looked up, laughed, and said, "Convenient timing. Security will escort you out." The board members shifted uncomfortably in their leather chairs. Only Jackson Wang, their largest investor, dared to meet Rebecca's eyes, but even he remained silent. Rebecca stood perfectly still, one hand instinctively moving to her stomach. Her mind raced through 8 years of marriage, through late nights coding in their garage apartment before they even had funding, through all the investor meetings where Ethan presented her algorithm as his own creation. "If you'll direct your attention to the presentation," Camilla said, rising gracefully and clicking her remote. The screen illuminated with financial projections. "As you can see, the operations department has been underperforming for the past 3 quarters. Rebecca frowned. "Those aren't the numbers I submitted last week." "These are the actual numbers," Camilla emphasized, glancing at Ethan, who nodded in support. "Not the ones you've been doctoring to cover your declining performance." The accusation hung in the air. Board members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "That's absurd," Rebecca said, her voice steady despite the hammering of her heart. "I can show you the original reports right now." "We've already checked your laptop," Ethan interjected. "It found evidence that you've been manipulating data for months." He slid a folder across the polished table. "The evidence is quite clear." Rebecca didn't touch the folder. She knew whatever it contained was fabricated. Instead, she looked directly at Jackson Wang. "Jackson, you know this isn't true." Jackson looked down, unwilling to meet her eyes. He'd known the Collins for years, had been at their wedding. His silence spoke volumes. "The board has already voted," Ethan continued, his voice detached as if addressing a stranger rather than his wife. "Your performance has been declining, and frankly, you've been dead weight for years. The company can no longer carry you." The words struck like physical blows. Dead weight. After everything she'd built, everything she'd created. Rebecca's mind flashed to late nights coding while Ethan worked at parties, to the initial algorithm she'd developed in their garage apartment before they even had funding. "Ethan, we need to discuss this privately," Rebecca said, her voice low. "There are things the board doesn't know." "There's nothing to discuss," he cut her off. "Camilla has been essentially doing your job for months. The transition will be seamless." Camilla straightened, unable to hide her triumph. "The board has already approved my appointment as the new Chief Operating Officer." Rebecca felt the room tilt slightly. This wasn't just a firing, it was a coup, and it had been planned meticulously. "Ethan," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "I'm pregnant." A flicker of something, surprise, perhaps even fear, crossed Ethan's face before dissolving into a dismissive laugh. "Convenient timing," he said, eyebrow raised, "but it doesn't change anything. The decision is final." Camilla stepped forward, hand extended. "Your company access cards and laptop, please. Company policy for terminated executives." Rebecca noted how Camilla emphasized terminated, as if savoring the word. Slowly, she removed her access card from around her neck and unplugged her laptop. As she handed them over, Camilla leaned in close. "He never loved you," she whispered, her perfume overwhelming. "You were just useful until you weren't." The boardroom door opened and 2 security guards entered. Men Rebecca knew by name, Carlos and Jim. They'd wished her happy birthday last month. Now they wouldn't meet her eyes. "Please escort Ms. Collins out of the building," Ethan instructed, already turning back to the board. "Now, as for our next agenda item..." Rebecca allowed herself to be guided toward the elevator, her mind running calculations faster than ever before. As the doors closed, she caught a final glimpse of the boardroom. Ethan, already laughing at something Camilla had said, the board members relaxing now that the unpleasantness was over. Carlos shifted uncomfortably beside her. "I'm sorry, Miss Collins. We're just doing our job." "I understand, Carlos," she said softly. "How's Maria's pregnancy going?" His eyes widened in surprise that she remembered his wife's condition. "Good, thank you. We find out if it's a boy or girl next week." Rebecca nodded, maintaining her composure as they crossed the lobby. Employees stared as security escorted their COO through the atrium. Some looked confused, others quickly averted their eyes. Rebecca kept her head high, her pace measured. Outside, the summer heat hit her like a wall. Carlos and Jim accompanied her to her car, standing awkwardly as she unlocked it. "Again, we're really sorry, Miss Collins," Jim said. Rebecca smiled gently. "It's not your fault. Take care of yourselves." They watched as she settled into the driver's seat, closing the door with a decisive click. Only when they turned to walk back toward the building did Rebecca's composure falter. Her hands trembled as she reached for her personal phone, not the company one she'd surrendered. She scrolled to a contact simply labeled Contingency and pressed call. A woman's voice answered immediately. "Rebecca, has it happened?" Rebecca watched the Collins Innovations logo gleaming in the sunlight. The company she had built from code and dreams now turned against her. "It's time," she said, her voice finding new strength. "They've made their move." 3 hours later, Rebecca sat in her personal home office, a space Ethan rarely entered. While their main house stood in Westlake Hills, a sprawling modern showcase for entertaining clients and investors, Rebecca had maintained this small apartment near downtown. Officially, it was an investment property, but she'd kept it as her private workspace for years. Here, surrounded by her original coding notebooks and personal servers, Rebecca reviewed files on her personal laptop, the one Ethan knew nothing about. On the screen, the original algorithm that had made Collins Innovations a billion-dollar company scrolled by, elegant in its complexity. 5 years ago, when Rebecca had developed the predictive algorithm that revolutionized supply chain management, Ethan had been focused on raising their first serious round of funding. While he wined and dined potential investors, Rebecca had worked through nights perfecting the code. When it was ready, Ethan had insisted on presenting it himself. "Investors respond to confidence, Beck," he'd said. "You get nervous in presentations. Let me handle this part. We're a team, remember?" She'd agreed, believing in their partnership. That was her first mistake. A notification pinged on her screen, a news alert announcing an impromptu press conference at Collins scheduled for tomorrow morning. They weren't wasting any time. Rebecca opened her personal safe hidden behind a bookshelf and extracted a thick folder labeled Origin Documentation. Inside were notarized records of her work, dated patent registrations, and correspondence with the patent office, all filed under her maiden name, Rebecca Chen, a safeguard she'd implemented when the first doubts about Ethan had surfaced 2 years ago. Her phone buzzed with a text message from Camilla. "Ethan wants the house too. We expect you out by Friday." Rebecca ignored it, instead picking up her phone to call Jackson Wong directly. Despite his silence in the boardroom, Jackson was a shrewd businessman who respected evidence above all else. "Jackson Wong," he answered, his voice cautious. "We need to meet," Rebecca said without preamble. "Not about my termination, about something much bigger that affects your $100 million investment." Silence stretched for a moment before Jackson responded. "The Continental, private dining room. 1 hour." Rebecca ended the call and stood, catching her reflection in the window. She looked unchanged on the outside, the same dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, the same determined set to her jaw, but something fundamental had shifted inside her. She placed a protective hand over her still flat stomach. "They have no idea what they've done," she whispered to herself and her unborn child. The Continental's private dining room offered the discretion that Austin's business elite required. Jackson Wong was already seated when Rebecca arrived, a scotch sitting untouched before him. At 62, Jackson had the weathered look of someone who'd built and lost fortunes before finding lasting success. He'd been the first major investor to back Collins. "You're taking this surprisingly well," he observed as Rebecca sat down, declining the waiter's offer of wine with a subtle hand over her stomach, a gesture Jackson didn't miss. "I've been prepared for something like this for 18 months, Rebecca replied once they were alone, ever since Camilla arrived and Ethan started changing. Jackson leaned forward. "What exactly am I here to see, Rebecca?" Ethan presented compelling evidence. "Fabricated evidence," she interrupted, opening her leather portfolio. "But that's not why I called you here." She slid across the first document, her original patent filing for the algorithm that formed Collins' foundation. "This was filed 3 months before Collins was even incorporated," she explained, "under my maiden name, Rebecca Chen." Jackson studied the document, his expression unchanging though his eyes sharpened with interest. "Keep going," he said. Rebecca placed a second document beside it, the licensing agreement she'd created allowing Collins to use her intellectual property, an agreement Ethan had signed but clearly forgotten about or assumed was meaningless. "I created Collins' core technology before we were married," Rebecca continued. "Ethan was focused on the business plan and fundraising, things he excels at. I handled the technology. We agreed it was a partnership." Jackson examined the licensing agreement carefully. "Why didn't you ever speak up? You let him take all the credit in every investor presentation, every media interview." Rebecca's eyes reflected a mixture of regret and resolution. "I believed in our partnership more than my ego. That was my mistake." She laid out more documents, email chains showing her explaining the technology to Ethan, early test results, and her notebooks with the original code concepts. "But there's more," she continued, producing financial records. "These show discrepancies between the actual company performance and what's been reported to the board." Jackson's expression darkened as he reviewed the numbers. "These suggest systematic manipulation of financial reports." "Started around the time Ethan brought Camilla in," Rebecca finished for him. "The company is performing significantly worse than you've been told." Jackson set down the documents, his face grim. "The board needs to see this immediately." Rebecca's phone buzzed with a news alert. She turned the screen for Jackson to see. "Collins Innovations announces emergency press conference. CEO Ethan Collins to address company restructuring." "He's moving faster than I anticipated," Rebecca said. Jackson was already reaching for his phone. "I can stall the press conference." "No," Rebecca said firmly. "Let him talk. Let them both talk." Her calm certainty gave Jackson pause. "What are you planning, Rebecca?" Rebecca gathered her documents carefully. "Justice, Jackson. Nothing more, nothing less." As they prepared to leave, Jackson asked the question that had clearly been bothering him since the boardroom. "The pregnancy. Is it real?" Rebecca met his gaze steadily. "Yes, 12 weeks. Ethan and I had been trying for years." She paused. He was more interested in the heir to his company than in being a father. Outside, Jackson's driver held the door for them. Before Rebecca could step toward her own car, Jackson stopped her. "What do you need from me right now?" Rebecca considered the question carefully. "Just be ready to move quickly tomorrow, and perhaps warn your fellow board members to have their lawyers present for the press conference." As Rebecca drove away, she allowed herself the first real smile since the boardroom. Phase 1 was complete, the groundwork laid. Tomorrow would bring the next stage of her carefully orchestrated response to betrayal. Dawn found Rebecca preparing methodically in her apartment. She'd slept surprisingly well, the clarity of purpose washing away the emotional turmoil of the previous day. On her television, financial news anchors speculated about the sudden press conference at Collins. "Sources suggest major leadership changes at tech darling Collins Innovations," the anchor reported. "The company's stock is up 2% in pre-market trading on rumors that co-founder and COO Rebecca Collins may be stepping down." Rebecca allowed herself a small, knowing smile. The stock would not be up for long. Her phone rang. Eliza Winters, her personal attorney and old college roommate. "I've reviewed everything," Eliza said without preamble. "Your documentation is impeccable. The patent office has confirmed your filings predate Collins Incorporation. The emergency injunctions are ready to file with one word from you." "Thank you," Rebecca replied. "Is Judge Hamilton available today?" "He's on standby. He owes me after that charity auction fiasco last year." Rebecca nodded to herself. Wait for my signal. I want to see what story they tell first. After ending the call, Rebecca dressed with particular care, choosing a structured navy dress that projected authority without drawing attention to her still-hidden pregnancy. As she fastened her grandmother's pearl earrings, she thought of the family legacy they represented, generations of strong women who had faced adversity with dignity. At precisely 9 a.m., Rebecca settled onto her couch, laptop opened beside her, and turned up the volume on the television. The Collins logo filled the screen as cameras showed the company's press room. The empty podium waited, backdrop artfully arranged to highlight the company's achievements, many of which were Rebecca's work. Ethan strode out confidently, Camilla 2 steps behind him. Rebecca noted that Camilla had chosen a dress remarkably similar to ones Rebecca often wore for press appearances, a subtle but clear message about replacement. "Good morning," Ethan began, his practiced charm on full display. "Thank you for joining us on short notice. As Collins Innovations continues its trajectory of growth and innovation, we occasionally need to make difficult leadership decisions to ensure our continued success." Rebecca opened her laptop, fingers poised over the keyboard. "It is with regret that I announce the departure of Rebecca Collins from her position as Chief Operating Officer," Ethan continued, his expression a masterful blend of professional concern and personal regret. "Rebecca has been instrumental in Collins' early development, but as companies evolve, leadership needs change." Rebecca typed a single word to Eliza: "Now." On screen, Ethan continued his carefully constructed narrative. "While we had hoped to manage this transition smoothly, recent events have necessitated immediate action. Rebecca has been experiencing personal difficulties that have affected her professional judgment." Camilla stepped forward, placing a supportive hand on Ethan's arm, a gesture calculated to appear compassionate while suggesting intimacy. "It's with great sadness that we've had to address increasingly erratic behavior," Ethan added, his voice lowered as if sharing a difficult confidence. "We've tried to handle this privately, but Rebecca's condition has made that impossible." Rebecca's eyes narrowed, the unstable woman narrative exactly as she'd predicted. "I'm pleased to announce that Camilla Reyes will be stepping into the role of Chief Operating Officer," Ethan continued, turning to smile at Camilla. "Her exceptional work as my executive assistant has demonstrated her readiness for this responsibility." Camilla stepped to the microphone. "I'm honored by the trust placed in me, and while these circumstances are unfortunate, I'm committed to building on the foundation Rebecca helped establish." Rebecca smiled coldly at the calculated humility. On her laptop screen, a message from Eliza appeared. "Injunctions filed. Judge Hamilton signing now." On television, a reporter stood. "Mr. Collins, can you elaborate on Mrs. Collins' condition and erratic behavior?" Ethan adopted a pained expression. "Out of respect for Rebecca, I'd prefer not to detail the specific incidents. This is a personal matter as well as professional." He was interrupted by the buzz of phones throughout the press room, journalists receiving a breaking news alert. Simultaneously, a reporter in the front row looked up from her phone, eyes wide. "Mr. Collins, we're receiving reports that emergency injunctions have just been filed prohibiting Collins Innovations from using proprietary algorithms and software. The filings claim these technologies are actually owned by Rebecca Chen, Mrs. Collins' maiden name, and were only licensed to Collins. Can you comment?" The camera caught Ethan's momentary freeze, the flicker of a panic before he recovered. "I'm not aware of any such filings. This sounds like unfortunate confusion." Another reporter cut in. "The injunctions include documentation showing Miss Chen patented the core technology before Collins was incorporated. Does this mean Collins has no legal right to its primary products?" The press room erupted with questions. Camilla leaned toward Ethan, whispering urgently. His composure visibly cracked as he glanced down at his own phone, now flooding with alerts. "We'll need to review these claims before commenting further," he managed, voice tight. "This press conference is concluded. Thank you." As Ethan and Camilla retreated from the podium amid shouted questions, Rebecca calmly sipped her tea, watching the chaos unfold exactly as she had anticipated. Her phone rang. Jackson Wang. "The board is in emergency session," he said without greeting. "Ethan claims this is all fabricated revenge. His lawyer is already calling it the desperate actions of a disturbed woman." "As expected," Rebecca replied calmly. "What exactly is your endgame here, Rebecca?" She considered the question. "Truth, Jackson. Simply truth. Every lie they tell will be another nail in their coffin." If you're enjoying this story of betrayal and justice, please take a moment to like and subscribe. Your support means everything to us, and it costs nothing but helps us bring more stories like this one to you. Thank you for being part of our community of storytellers and listeners. By noon, Collins' stock had dropped 18% as market uncertainty about the company's right to its own technology triggered a sell-off. Rebecca watched the financial channels from her kitchen as she prepared a light lunch, mindful of her pregnancy nutrition needs. Her phone hadn't stopped ringing. Board members, company executives, even old college friends now working in tech journalism. She answered none of them, instead sending the same text response, "I will address all questions tomorrow." The waiting was strategic. Let Ethan and Camilla scramble. Let them make more mistakes. A knock at her door broke her concentration. Rebecca approached cautiously, checking the security camera on her phone. To her surprise, Camilla Reyes stood in the hallway, alone and looking considerably less composed than she had at the press conference. Rebecca opened the door but blocked the entrance. "This is unexpected." Camilla's perfect makeup couldn't hide her agitation. "Can I come in? I need to talk to you. Away from Ethan. Away from everyone." "Why would I trust anything you have to say?" "Because I have information you need," Camilla's voice dropped, "and because he's betrayed us both." Against her better judgment, Rebecca stepped aside, allowing Camilla into the apartment but keeping her in the small entry hall. 5 minutes, Rebecca said coldly. Camilla glanced around, noting the space that Ethan knew nothing about. "He doesn't know about this place, does he?" "Your 5 minutes are ticking away." Camilla straightened. "I want to help you." Rebecca's laugh was short and disbelieving. "After you helped him fire me? After you whispered in my ear that he never loved me? Try again." "I was wrong," Camilla said abruptly, "about everything. I thought—" She paused, seeming to gather herself. "I thought Ethan and I had something real, that once you were gone, I would get everything you had. The title, the recognition, maybe even him." Camilla opened her handbag, extracting a flash drive. "Last night after the board meeting, I overheard Ethan on the phone with Lawrence Chen of Global Tech." Rebecca's eyes narrowed. Global Tech had been trying to acquire Collins for years. "He's planning to sell the company," Camilla continued. "The promotion to COO was temporary, just to stabilize things until the sale goes through. He was laughing about it, saying neither of us would be necessary once he cashed out." Rebecca maintained her skeptical expression. "Why would you turn on him now?" "Because I finally realized I'm just another tool to him, just like you were." Camilla's polished veneer cracked slightly. "And because what he said about your pregnancy was unforgivable." Rebecca considered Camilla carefully. This could be an elaborate trap, Ethan sending Camilla to gather information or plant false evidence, but the fear in Camilla's eyes seemed genuine. "If this is some kind of setup—" "Test the files," Camilla interrupted. "Verify them however you need to. I can get more evidence if you need it." Rebecca finally took the flash drive, though she had no intention of inserting it into any of her computers without thorough security scanning. "If what you're saying is true," Rebecca said carefully, "what exactly are you hoping for here?" Camilla's answer came without hesitation. "Protection. When this all comes crashing down, I don't want to be collateral damage. I have texts and emails showing Ethan instructed me to alter financial reports. I was following orders." "Not exactly an innocent bystander." "No," Camilla admitted, "but not the mastermind either. I can help you bring him down completely." Rebecca studied the woman who had sought to replace her, recognizing the calculation behind the apparent contrition. Camilla was nothing if not a survivor. "Here are my terms," Rebecca said finally. "You continue working with Ethan exactly as before. You report everything to me, every conversation, every plan, every reaction to today's events. You provide any evidence I request. In exchange, when this is over, you walk away unscathed, provided your information proves valuable and truthful." Camilla nodded quickly. "I can do that." "One more thing," Rebecca added, her voice hardening. "If I discover you're playing both sides, the consequences will make today's stock drop look like a minor correction. Are we clear?" "Crystal clear," Camilla replied. After Camilla left, Rebecca weighed the flash drive in her palm, considering the unexpected development. A potential ally inside the enemy camp. Useful, but dangerous. She would proceed with caution. Her phone rang again, her doctor's office. This call she answered. "Mrs. Collins, Dr. Liu here, just calling to confirm your blood work looks excellent, and your pregnancy is progressing beautifully. Would you like to know the gender? It was detectable in your latest tests." Rebecca placed a hand protectively over her stomach, reminded of what was truly at stake beyond corporate power plays. "Yes," she said softly. "I would like to know." As the doctor shared the news, Rebecca smiled genuinely for the first time that day. She had even more motivation now to ensure that justice prevailed, not just for herself, but for the daughter she now knew she carried. "Now," she whispered after ending the call, "the real game begins." The Collins Innovations boardroom was filled to capacity the next morning. Board members sat nervously around the table, legal counsel whispering in their ears. Ethan paced at the head of the table, his usual polish replaced by visible strain. Camilla sat nearby, her face a mask of professional concern that only Rebecca could read as carefully crafted. When Rebecca entered, the room fell silent. She wore a simple black dress with a single strand of pearls, elegant, understated, and unmistakably in control. "Thank you for agreeing to this emergency meeting," she said calmly. Ethan stepped forward. "This is highly irregular. You're no longer an employee." "She's here at my invitation," Jackson Wong interjected. "As a major shareholder, I have that right." Rebecca nodded her thanks to Jackson before addressing the group. "Yesterday, you heard one version of events from Mr. Collins. Today, I'd like to present the facts." For the next 30 minutes, Rebecca methodically laid out her evidence. The original patents, the financial discrepancies, and most devastatingly, recordings from Camilla's flash drive showing Ethan instructing her to falsify reports and discussing plans to sell the company to Global Tech without board approval. "This," Rebecca said, holding up a document, "is a forensic audit confirming systematic financial manipulation dating back 18 months. She passed copies to each board member. And this," she continued, revealing another document, "is a letter from the Securities and Exchange Commission confirming a formal investigation into securities fraud." Ethan lunged to his feet. "This is a vindictive fabrication." "The SEC doesn't investigate fabrications, Ethan," Rebecca cut him off. "That phone call I made after you had me escorted out yesterday? It wasn't to my lawyer. It was to the SEC whistleblower office. A call I should have made months ago when I first suspected what you were doing." The board members exchanged horrified glances. Their personal liability was now in question. "You've destroyed this company," Ethan snarled. "No, you did that," Rebecca replied evenly. "I'm here to save it." She turned to the board. "You have two options. Option 1. Continue with Ethan as CEO, face the SEC investigation, watch the stock collapse when the market learns you've been selling a product you don't own, and prepare for multiple shareholder lawsuits." Rebecca paused, letting the implications sink in. Or, Option 2. Remove Ethan immediately, restructure the company's licensing agreement with me for the core technology, appoint new leadership committed to transparent governance, and salvage what's left of the company's value and reputation. The vote took less than 10 minutes. Ethan Collins was removed as CEO by unanimous decision. As security escorted a shouting Ethan from the building, following the same route Rebecca had taken just 2 days earlier, Camilla slipped quietly away, her part in the drama complete. Jackson approached Rebecca after the meeting. "Impressive execution. What happens now?" Rebecca touched her stomach gently. "Now I focus on what matters. The company will survive without me for a while." And Camilla, She'll receive exactly what she earned. No more, no less. 6 months later, Rebecca sat in her new home office, her daughter Emily sleeping peacefully in the bassinet beside her desk. On her computer screen, a news alert appeared. Former tech CEO Ethan Collins pleads guilty to securities fraud, faces 5 years. Rebecca closed the alert without emotion. That chapter was finished. She turned instead to the business plan on her screen, a new venture focused on ethical AI applications, backed by Jackson Wang and staffed by the best former Collins employees. A company that would bear her name from the beginning, Chen Innovations, and operate on principles of transparency and integrity. As Emily stirred and opened her eyes, Rebecca lifted her daughter gently. "The best revenge," she whispered to the baby, "is building something better from the ashes they leave behind." Unlike Ethan, she understood now that true success wasn't measured in stock prices or corner offices. It was built on integrity, perseverance, and the legacy you create. Lessons she would make sure her daughter learned from the beginning. Rebecca smiled down at Emily. "Let's go build something that will last." Please do comment your feedback and subscribe to our channel for more unexpected stories. Remember, it's never too late to change your story.